Hello everyone. Now let's start with the first step in seal engraving, that is, the grinding. But why should a stone be ground? Because the stone is not flat on the surface. Another reason is that there is a special stone called Qintian, and which is sealed with a layer of wax. So we have to get wax off if we want to cut text on it. There is another case that stones like Shoshan that we want to keep them in good condition, so the stones are covered with oil. So if there's no wax or oil on the stone, then you can't write on it. That's the reason why we should get it removed or ground. And how to grind a stone? Well, we usually use sandpaper. Now, a lot of people prefer to use emery disc, and which is durable in practice for a longer time. But what we often use is called sandpaper like this, a new type anyway. They are all named sandpaper. But this type of sandpaper called gauze is relatively thick, so that the crushed stone sand can be filtered out. By using it, we could finish the grinding in a short time. And grinding could be classified into rough and fine work. We could do rough grinding like this, and that's this way. Listen to sound, that means the grinding is done very, very fast. As we finish the grinding, we will find that the surface is filled with small weaving patterns. And this is the skill we call the rough grinding. And then we will do fine grinding with the sandpaper, which is much thinner than gauze. The grinding is very tough work, that sometimes the front side will not be that flat as the back side, or get the stone no flat surface. People in ancient time invented a grinding method which ran it like the writing of number 8. And in this way, it is much easier to flatten the surface and can make sure that the two sides are even on the surface. So let's take a look at this that is basically formed like the number 8. And you can also grind the stone way around like this. And since the sandpaper is thin enough that you are turning back and forth in the shape of number 8, it will soon get flattened for a few rounds. So that is the way of grinding the seal stones. Now let's design a seal pattern and write in characters on the seal surface like this. And we can just do the engraving job with it. This is the first way. Now we have a stone. The stone looks somehow like a flat square, and we can place two characters on the surface. Before writing, if you are not very sure about a pattern, you can first give it a rough outline with the pencil and design the pattern you prefer. Like you can join a line to separate the two characters from the middle because they are symmetrical. Then write Well, that's my habit, that I don't like to use the seal bed. It is no problem. When I was beginner, I love it. Or I should say I couldn't do without the seal bed and use it way too much. But later, I became more skilled in seal works, or it was my habit that I started to refuse to use it. Of course, you can use it if you like. Just remember, Whether you'd like to use seal bed or not is not the standard for your engraving proficiency. It doesn't mean that you are a master if you hold seal by hand instead of placing it in a seal bed. I said that is your habit. So that is the way it looks like. And now I draw a rough outline of the two characters daji, and I said the seal script that I wrote was similar to that of the Qin dynasty. The characters were in the upper and lower part, yet the line is similar to that of J seals. The structure is similar to that of the Qin dynasty, and this is my standard. It is very personal. And next I will show you how to cut a seal with the character daji, and just look at it. Since I don't like to use a seal bed, I will cut it without any other tools. I will use only the knife, and I will choose a small knife that I like better. Why? Because the seal and the characters are comprised of thin lines. A big knife is not suitable for engraving thin lines. Alright, now let's begin the job. Lines must be straight, because just like what I said, they are more like those of J sails, which have to be neat and thin. Well, let's take a look at the seal. That's all for the lecture. Thanks. Alright, let's move on, and I will continue the engraving. And I just made a rough job before. Now I will explain how to modify the seal surface. And let's take a look. And I got it black, so this would be much easier to catch the black from the white. There are two parts I need to say for the modification. First, you have to adjust the sum of your lines. For instance, you have to take a close look at the spacing, thickness, and straightness of lines. Second, you have to look at the frame. It is necessary to think about which part need to get broken or perfected. And now let's do the line first and check if they are right straight. Now for those who are not straight and smooth enough, we have to make an adjustment. And we also have to check if all the lines are the same in thickness. Next, I will do with the frame, and in which the balance between the seal and frame is very important. That means we have to take in a contrast. If the characters are compact in thick lines, then the part of the frame should be left obscure, and vice versa. There's no specific law in terms of the engraving, or we don't have any requirement. They are just the rules that are commonplace. This means you have to decide whether to get the frame broken or how to break it based on your experience. There's no set requirement for on which side there should be a broken or an obscured pattern. Okay, so now just finally let's use the brush to clean it, and the modification of the seal surface is down. Now comes the final step that we're going to get it stamped, and I will show you how to stamp the seal, and there are still some skills. First, take the ink paste box and open it, and here it is the paste. And you might think it is simple to touch the paste before stamping like this. That's the way many people would do. But this is not a way that could make it perfect. We're going to get a perfect stamp, and for this purpose, there is something you should remember. In general, we use a hand to hold this paste box, like I use my left hand to hold it up, while using my right hand to take the seal. So there are actually the two forces coming from both hands to get together. Instead, we should first keep the seal in the vertical stance and secure it in the proper space where the stamp should be located, and just let it down. And just remember to keep our hand and also moving down vertically to press it down to the paper. And afterwards, we shake the seal a bit forward, and just a bit, not using a big force. And again, shake it to the left and to the right, and to keep the surface evenly grounded to the paper. That's the common practice, just like we stamp the signature. And then lift it up, and as the paper is very thin and light-weighted, and it looks like stuck into the seal up. And now take a close look at the stamp. The red stamp looks still not evenly spread over the paper, with some dark spaces and the rest are light colored. So it's not even, still not evenly stamped. And the most possible setbacks are from the four corners. And then we can use the fingernail, better use the fingernail of the little finger, or we could probably use the pen stick. And of course, you can just get it moving on the board back and forth. And for me, I prefer to use the fingernail to flatten the paper. And bring it upside down and set the seal apart like this. Well, now you see the stamp looks much close to perfect, that the lines are complete and polished and evenly carved. And the red paste on the paper and the stamp looks pretty good.